first start in an industry, you have this rush because you see a lot of people maybe succeeding, right? You see people walking away with 30, 40, $50,000 paychecks, and you've been fucking doing everything you can, everything you're told, everything that in your possible power to mimic and do what they're doing. But what you are not doing that they're doing is they've already kind of went through those bumps and bruises you're experiencing now, right? They had all those fallouts. And so for your first few months, or I would say for your first year of originating, especially if you're new, you have to experience that and don't dwell on it, because it's going to happen more and more, right? And so the only way that you can actually grow from it is if you figure out why did it fuck up? What could I have done? Right? And in the process of, you have an opportunity to kind of build your reputation with the operations that it goes through. Does that make sense? Because in your process, in any sales process, especially here, your sale goes through like a conveyor belt, right? It goes from the receptionist, the CSR, to you, to your LOA, to your PA, to your processing. So you're relying on all these little different departments. So even if you go through that entire channel and it still dies at the end, you still gain some experience and some kind of bond with that sequence, right? Mm-hmm. And so wherever you're finding most of the fallout, whether it's right in processing or after values in, right, or it's a common reason like income or loan to value, then it's going to tell you what to be more cautious about in the very beginning. So if you're referring to Zillow only for property value, and it's a common fucking thing that you're noticing, I'm gonna cuss a few times here. If it's a common thing that you're seeing values come in short or low, then maybe be a bit more proactive from the very beginning. On the flip side, if you see that a lot of it's happening with income, then you may want to do a little bit more screening at the very beginning. And we have the resources, kind of like I was saying, the LOAs, the PAs, the processing. We have other departments that aren't really used, like ILA scenarios or disclosures or pricing desk, right? These are different departments that not necessarily in your world and you don't know exist, but when you understand what they do, you can better kind of mitigate the duties, right? So for example, instead of spending an hour to review income, but protocol is going to say you need to learn how to read tax returns. No, I don't. I need to be able to generate the interest and generate the sale. I'm going to generate enough interest to have this borrower send me all these documents, and I'm going to put it in the right hands. Does that make sense? So I'm a guide. That's all we are. We're a guide, and it depends on how you guide the traffic. You can guide the traffic like our competitors and sound very robotic, right? Like it's a process, because that's the way you're told. And it's because that's the company policy, right? And I think that's where it's confused, especially when you come in to an industry, especially right now. Even some veterans are doing it right now. They're gaining the rapport incorrectly, meaning that they're sounding like the competition. The landscape of sales evolves, it changes, right? All the fucking time it changes because the way communications change. The reason why calling now with the same tone that you would call, let's say 10 years ago, you know what I mean? Like hey, good afternoon, how are you? Right? There's that tone, there's that because society's been kind of wired in a way to now be on guard for that. Does that make sense? Just like they're being wired now to be on guard for immediate numbers. Like they call in and say, hey, you know what, Daniel, I don't want to talk to you, just give me your bottom line rate. Right? And then unfortunately, it's common that you'll go into it. You'll be like, yeah, my lowest rate is like 2.5. You lost. If you give them too much information at the very beginning, they don't need you anymore, right? And I'll go a little bit more into that strategy, but does that answer your question with regards to burnout? It's really just learning about it. So invite it, don't dwell on it, because the longer you dwell on it, you're letting your momentum go in a different way. Right. So the momentum that you have, we try in sales, we try our best to control that momentum, because we have to have that thick skin. We have to be able to take rejection often. Right. And where most can't take rejection, that's why they don't do sales. We're willing to do so because we see the upside to it. Right. We see the upside to helping people. or building a book of business, or a fat fucking income that is far beyond more than what you can earn at Kohl's, right? Or working at Nordstrom. It's a better alternative. It's a better option. Some people will choose to do it for money. Some people will do it because of money and they don't have an option. I happen to have done it for both, right? Because I didn't necessarily have an option. You know, my sales started in telemarketing, and it evolved to mortgage lending. And as a telemarketer, I came up and I was very good at it. You know, again, I did 45 fucking hour surveys on Pizza Hut, newspapers. You know, I had to call people randomly on dialers and ask them to complete a survey, right? And I would do that all the fucking time because I had fun with it. And so all I'm doing is just applying the shit that I learned there and just kind of enhancing and evolving it along the way. And so where I think that initially, you know, when you come into like a junior department and you come into sales as a first time, you're learning a lot of lingo that you're excited about, right? Like, oh fuck yeah, dude, I'm talking about what these fuckers are talking about now. I know what one O buy down means now. You know, I know what ARM means now. I know what PITI stands for. So you're excited, natural. And when it comes through to the consumer though, you're actually giving too much information sometimes, right? And that's why they need to think about it. That's why they you know, because they can sense it in almost in like your tone, where you're sounding exactly like the other loan officer whose NMLS number is within 10 of yours. Does that make sense? Because they're excited too. And most of our competitors, the big competitors, are putting in brand new people with licenses and just using them for licenses. And so they're doing the application, then it goes on to operations. Operations takes it from there. It's like basically saying, hey, thanks for your license. We'll take it from here. You go ahead and you stay in the front. You keep talking to these people. Does that make sense? So in order to not be just the license number, in order to build equity in your license number, in your reputation, be considered for promotion and grow within this type of industry, you have to kind of stand out and make noise in a different way, right? So I have a sales script that's available. The content and the scripting is all printed out for you, so it's very easily available. And the reason for it is because you're sounding different than your competitors. Whereas I'm gonna give you an example. So if a caller right now calls in, immediately they say, you know what, I don't want to give you any information, right? Just that's a common objection. Would you agree?
Yes.
What's your bottom line rate? Can you beat 3.5? Right? I only want a lower rate. And what that script does is it reminds you that all they're doing is telling you what they're programmed to say. What they really mean is that they need savings. Make sense? What they really mean is I need a lower payment. What they really mean by saying I don't want to give you information is that they're scared because they don't want to be booked. Make sense? When you do an inquiry online, whether you guys have done it before and gotten inquiries, whether it's like insurance or something like that, you're cautious, right? You have this guard about you because it's like you're interviewing people for a job. Does that make sense? You're getting an initial interview to figure out who you're going to go with. And when we apply it that way, you're going to notice that all of your competitors are doing it in kind of like they're interviewing for a job. So they're on their best behavior. They're giving the best answers that they think that the customer wants. Where they're hearing it too often, they're actually going to comply more if you're different, meaning that, you know, if they call in and they say, hey, I got a 2.5 fix and I only want a no-cost loan. Can you do it? Absolutely. Let me help you. Before I begin, I just want to confirm that I can even carry on this conversation. And if I can, I'll move forward and ask you the questions necessary. If I can't, I'm gonna help you save a bunch of time. Now the property, this is your primary home, right? Does that make sense? So that opening alone will give you the control you need. Whereas most of the openings that I hear, even from veterans, is, hey, my name's Daniel, I'm gonna go and give you some information. Do you have a pen and paper? Okay, what's your goal? Fuck that. I don't ask them their goal, right? I'm not gonna ask them like, hey, well, what are you trying to do? I already know what they wanna do because I've heard it enough times. It's the same shit. I want a lower rate. I want a lower payment. I don't wanna pay shit for fees. I want it all for free. It's noise, right? And why I ignore it and don't ask it is because it used to deter my energy. Because we get every morning a rate sheet saying, fuck, rates are up again, right? So if I start a conversation with Mr. Patel saying, I need a 2.5 fucking 30-year fix with no fees, I'm going to get in a zone. Again, I'm controlling my momentum, right? So if I hear that, and it might fuck me up. So I don't go about it that way. Instead, I take immediate control and I find out whether or not I should move forward with the call, because I am the one who also needs to be respected and valued on this phone call, right? They came to us for information. You are in control. They don't know that your license number is brand new. They don't know that you're in the junior department. Does that make sense? We do, you do, but to them, you're just another agent. So you have your time to shine and be different. And I think where right now, because attention is on social media, you're seeing a lot of different advertisements that are just off the wall. It's good because it's kind of given us the ability to get more traffic through internet, but it'll work against you if you don't understand what their perception is coming in and actually kind of adapt to it. Am I making sense? Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what other questions can we cover? Yes.
No, you can do this.
I keep getting lowballed by like other competitors,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that for a fact that they haven't taken a full app and they're just freaking lowballing me, and they're coming back. And to be honest with you, it's happened a couple of times, and I have a feeling like in one sense that the borrower is just full of shit, and they're just telling me that to see if I can, you know what I mean? Because they never sent me a loan estimate. But I mean, if I'm battling with another loan officer and they keep lowballing me, what do you think is the best way or the best approach to explain to that borrower that they're getting lowballed, and I just don't
Sure. I think I get what you understand.
then I feel like I'm kind of like there's no way that's gonna happen, and I
Right.
don't feel like, I don't know if that's like the best way to go about it.
It will happen, right? Because everyone has a different price. There are brokers that work from home and literally lowball the offer just to pick up a unit because they close big transactions. But then again, they have cookie cutter shapes. So the only real way to do it is, in essence, kind of expose the competitor's flaws, but do it before. So to answer your question, how do you handle that? Is you actually handle it before it even happens. And to do this, you have to realize that when it comes to residential lending, there's really only four sources, right? There's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, and VA. Does that make sense? All we are just the storefront, just like all of our competitors. The single advantage that we have is we're a direct servicer for the entity. We're not a middleman. We're not the dude on Amazon who buys it from the distributor and then makes a profit in selling it to the consumer. Does that make sense? Whereas that's a broker. So the reason why I paint that picture is because a broker still has to go and find it. But you and I know this, right? You and I can talk the client blue in the face, and the reason why I'm telling you it's going to happen is because I don't want you to feel that way to your client, because it's going to come off in your tone. And the last thing you want to do is be combative and say, oh, no, fuck that, you're lying to me, right? But just handle it before it happens, and how you do it is you remind them inside the conversation. So I prefer to do it after I know I should move forward with the conversation. In other words, I've scrubbed it for the loan to value. I've scrubbed it already because I have the property profile up, that I know I have a loan program to talk to this guy about, right? That this guy has needs, and I'm asking the right questions. So I'm asking questions like, okay, I see that you refinanced in 2016. What rate did you get? I got a 3.5 30-year fixed. Most agents would say, okay, cool, you're good right there. Whereas I would come back in and say, besides this loan, what other debt do you have? Like, let's start off with credit card debt. Because I understand that most homeowners, not just in California, not just in Orange County, but all throughout the fucking US, are check to check. And I'm gonna expose that flaw because I need that leverage in order to continue my conversation. Does that make sense? So I'm giving you that example because you're just being proactive. You already know what you're gonna run into. You already know that these consumers are going to say, well, this company can give me this. And so how do I combat that is I actually plant the seeds beforehand, before it happens. So if it does happen, I'm going to remind them of what I already covered. It's far more powerful that way versus answering it when it happens. Does that make sense? And so how I'd answer and say, oh yeah, well, you know what, Travis, if you recall, when I was actually going through the initial screening process, before I can even go forward with the conversation, I have to make sure that you fit within the brackets or within the, you can word it however you like, fit within the guideline of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, if it's a conventional, or FHA or VA. And say the reason why is because they're the ones who give the approval. At the end of the day, we all go to the same source. The only advantage that I can give you, Travis, is that I'm a direct servicer for these sources. As a matter of fact, we're recognized as a full Eagle servicer. And I'm not lying to them, right? We're recognized as a full Eagle servicer. And what that means, Travis, is that, when you think of like Boy Scouts, think of full Eagle as the highest in rank. So what you're using us for is simply our relationship to these sources. Does that make sense? Now you've put all the competitors inside the same form as you. Yeah.
I was gonna say the full Eagle I use, and you can hear it, especially when you're talking to a vet or
Yeah.
does FHA, they like that.
Yeah.
Like we're a full Eagle servicer.
Well-
People aren't like us because we do so much business with them, and they trust in us. And that helps us get the loan done.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And that's why I actually refer to Boy Scouts, right? Who doesn't buy Boy Scout cookies? People relate with Boy Scouts and they think legit compliance. At least that's what I think. And then when you say full Eagle, think of it as Boy Scout rank. It's at the top rank. And so the only advantage that I can give you is that I'm a direct conduit. I'm a direct servicer. So you're using me to get a more efficient access to the source with lower costs, no broker fees, no retail markup. Basically, you have a choice. You could buy your water from Nordstrom, or you can get the same exact water at lower cost elsewhere. When you break it down that way, and then they bring up like, oh, this lender has a 2.5 30-year fix, he's paying all the costs. Say, oh yeah, no worries, sounds good. I'm glad that you found it, because the last thing you want to do is be combative, right? So oh yeah, that's awesome. Just to confirm, because we all go to the same source, just out of curiosity, what do they put in writing? Because it's not us, it's actually the source that confirms you're approved. Does that make sense? And that's why I had to ask those initial questions. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have moved forward unless I did the right pieces in play. And this is what's going to answer your question about the 1003 and whether or not that broker did, the application, looked at the income. That makes sense? Now, on the flip side, let's say you didn't even go that far. Let's say right at the very beginning, they're telling you, oh, I already got this lender is giving me 2.5 30-year fix. I'm all set. Say, yeah, no worries. That's actually the reason why I called. I just want to make sure you're all taken care of. I'm helping you take your information off, but just out of curiosity though, what was the main reason why you went with them? Or you could switch it up and say, hey, just out of curiosity though, did you get that 2.5 in writing? Yeah, he emailed me about it. Okay, the reason why I ask is because I'm a direct servicer to the exact same source that guy is going to. The only reason why we contact you is because you as a consumer have legal right to know how to access these sources without paying a high retail markup, without paying broker fees. And that's why I'm contacting you today.